Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of What in the World. And I am your host, Benny, and this is my host. Oh my
Jenna,
God,
how are you?
Jenna. How are you?
Good.
Okay, we're going to talk about some things that are just going on in the world, stuff that we think is interesting, and bring you some of the news that's going on today. So, the first thing we have to talk about today is the new season of You. We
Yes.
both
I've been,
watched it.
yes, I made him watch it actually
Yes,
because I
that's
needed
correct.
somebody to talk to about it because the internet tries to like ruin stuff, but I wanted to talk about it like in depth.
So let's talk about the first. Let's talk about the third season of You. If you haven't seen it, it's a show on Netflix. Um, it is pretty interesting. It follows this psychopathic type of character who
Stalker.
ba- basically is looking for the love of his life in all the wrong ways.
Yes.
If you're not familiar with the show, I mean, just catch up. There's going to be tons of spoilers. We're about to ruin it for you. So
Yes. Don't just skip through if you haven't seen.
yeah. So I loved the first two seasons of that show. I
I
didn't.
loved the first one.
The first season was the best. The second season was all right, and the third season, in my opinion, was not it.
It was not. My problem was, and you see me on Facebook complaining, was the crying. I don't have children yet, and literally, my ears were bleeding hearing this child cry. You know, I know they're trying to get me into it to be like, this is what life's like, and I know that's why I don't have children yet because it sounds awful. But them putting a child into this mix with the murder and the toxicity, it just was not cool at all. And I know people really do that in real life, which is fucked up. But seriously, the baby could have never been born. It would have been just good.
I just think I get they had to like okay so his whole thing is that he wants to find the love of his life, which is the you or whatever, and he finds her or whatever. She's also just as psychotic as he is, and then they have a baby together, and it's like I get that they want to follow through and show that like this character, how he would handle all these situations that he supposedly wants out of his life, like having a marriage and a baby, and how he can't handle it like literally at
Like
all.
real people.
Right, but more psychotic.
No
But
connection to the child, he kept saying,
right.
which a lot of men, not all, but some have that problem until the kid grows
I
up.
and then the way that season, what that season turned into, just trying to fit into the suburban life. I didn't want to see that. That was boring for
Boring. Where
me.
was the money coming from, guys? Why would
I
he have
know.
endless money? That house was $5 to $10 million at
Right.
least, you know. And then he's going to work at a library to go stalk women and jerking off in the parking lots. I mean,
And then the weird like just whole thing with the swingers thing.
yes. Okay, guys. So I was telling Benny, that's me. Okay. So I would totally be like, yeah, let's do swingers. I'm down. You know, right when he was like, love, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, I'm so sure. And that would be me because I'm testing you because I want you to say, no, Jenna, I only want you. And then I
Mhm.
would freak out
Yeah.
because I'm testing you and you failed.
I mean, that part was unsurprising. I
Right.
mean, it
That's
just
like, come on. We'll say, yeah, but not, I mean, some women are into it. I don't know.
and then the whole like just accidentally killing people, and they just somehow always have like a small room that's contained to keep people in.
Right. I mean, and then you always have to rebuild it in different places.
Hmm.
I read that somewhere they're like love bakes when she's stressed, and then in season 3 she opened up a whole bakery, so she was really stressed.
Yeah.
But that child she was hooking up with next door
Oh
didn't
my
care
God.
for it, didn't think it
No.
was hot. And then Benny didn't like the too much sex, and it was like repetitive
They were just
breakups.
fucking like so much. I didn't need to see them
Yeah, I
fuck
didn't even see
that
it. Wasn't even
much.
hot. Like, I don't think that they're hot like that either.
No, it was awkward. And it was like, it was weird. There were weird sex scenes. They weren't super enjoyable and they were
Right.
gratuitous. I felt like I just didn't need to see that. I really hope that the next season, since
So
they,
let's ruin it for them if you
okay, they
haven't
dumped
watched.
the
You guys
baby at
stop
the
watching.
end.
Henry, they gave 40 Henry to his gay couple friends, which was
Yes.
the best thing that they could have done for that child.
Yes.
And it's gonna be like Henry was never born in season 4. So I think his in season 4 his half brother will show up remember his mother left him,
Yes.
and then yeah. So I think he'll be in France because he's following that new girl that we don't really know much about. That very pretty girl. I don't know her name, and we really didn't even get to know her in season 3.
You
So he's gonna
barely
follow
got to
her in
see
season
her.
4.
You really barely got to see her. You got to see her giving him a little bit of shit at the library. You got to see her be vulnerable about her little drawing with him for a minute. You got to see her call him in the middle of the orgy and be like, "Can you come over?" "Oh no, sorry, that was stupid," or whatever. But she wasn't in the season all that much.
She was. I mean, her character wasn't that memorable.
No.
I am happy that the swingers couple wasn't killed.
Yes.
I
They
like
were
them.
they were
He's hot.
entertaining.
He's hot.
He was very cringy though.
Yes,
I mean, he was very
that
attractive.
body though.
He was fine, but he was like his character was just awful.
Yeah. But so we'll see. I'll still watch. Like I was telling Benny, just like Orange is the New Black, and it was like up and down with the seasons. I'm still gonna watch because that's my show.
Yeah.
But if you ruin it too much, like the Walking Dead is ruined to me, I won't watch it ever again. They ruined it a long time ago. If it goes that way, then I'll stop and I'm unsubscribing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll probably watch the next season of You to see if it's like redeems itself in any way.
We just need to get past the baby. Just drop him. He got
But
a
the
new
baby
family.
season
Bye. Yeah, like
was not it.
most men, just drop him. Well, I'll see him when he's 18.
Right. Okay, so
next topic.
We've got this little thing that just happened to pop up. A very famous football player, soccer player.
That's who it was? I didn't know who
Yeah.
the person was.
He's a famous soccer player, and his daughter is like some level of Instagram influencer. Anyway, she ended up posting this video of him, and we'll just play the video and let you guys see it first, and then we'll just dissect it. Here we go.
That's her dad.
Okay, that's her dad, her father chewing on her toenails. What is with the true love that she wrote on there? And the song choice was a little.
I mean, okay, number one, nobody should chew toes. That's just
period.
Disgusting. Number two, it should never be your father putting his lips on your feet. And then you post it on Instagram too. I think she had 65,000 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, something's weird going on over there.
It's weird. It's really weird. And people might be like, "Oh, it's just her foot or whatever." Okay, foot fetishes are a thing. Okay,
someone out there is looking at that like.
That's something that somebody with a foot fetish might find to be sexually gratifying in some way, and that's with the father-daughter dynamic. That's real weird. Oh God.
I think they should be investigated.
Honestly,
that's what I think. They should be investigated. They should see what's up because something's going on over there.
I mean, I'm pretty sure she's an adult.
It's still illegal. Incest is still illegal. You can go to prison in the United States. Yes.
I mean, like, I don't know how. This is in the UK though, so I don't know what their laws are like.
Well, if they fly over here, honey, they're going to prison if they find out. Like you will.
I mean,
it's just wrong.
Take your foot fetish and use it on somebody other than your daughter. God, that's just gross.
I hope he's no longer playing football.
I do too, honestly. I don't really know that much about him, but
right.
All right.
Tell you guys because I seen it and I was like, we have to talk about this.
It was horrifying, and we just couldn't be alone with it, honestly.
Right. We have to share all the horrible things with you guys.
So I'm sure that a lot of people who watched have heard of Gabby Potito, the woman who was murdered, and Brian Laundrie.
This is our first time talking about it, so it'll probably be kind of interesting to hear us. I know you guys have heard all about it, but we have our own thoughts on this case.
If you haven't been familiar with this case, you should just Google Gabby Potito, Brian Laundrie. Everything will pop up. It's been a pretty large news story for quite a while. Gabby's body has been found that she was strangulated, which is an extremely personal way to kill somebody. Of course, Brian, and we'll show him here,
Yes.
um, is that's Gabby Petito, and that is her boyfriend, fiance, or
Was
boyfriend,
fiance, yes.
fiance, Brian Laundrie, and he is supposedly he's missing. Of course, they've been looking for him,
Well,
but
they allegedly, okay, and I don't believe this because I just watched you. This all kind of
right,
intertwines. They allegedly found his skeletal remains. His
right,
parents kind of helped them find it. Now, allegedly, her brother is a dentist. So they identified him from dental records. Now,
teeth. Oh,
yes, this whole
that's
thing
not.
is very odd.
Mm-mm.
Those parents have never spoken out, for Gabby. They did not care.
Right,
They knew what their son did. I don't care what anyone
right.
says. They knew because he lawyered up ASAP. So the police never got to talk to him, which is BS, especially when you take her car across state lines. That's GTA, you know what I mean? And leaving her, somewhere. But I think that these parents are not regular people. They're not regular parents. They have money. They're allegedly worth $5 million. That's some money to work with to put them
Yeah,
somewhere. And
definitely.
if you saw you could stage your death. Okay, I know it's a show, but it's true. People stage their death all the time. And if they have money like that and resources like a brother allegedly being a dentist, you could get some anything and match it up.
And my thing is, like, I don't really feel like he's been missing long enough to be skeletal
Right.
remains already, unless he was burned or something like that. And then in which case, like, I don't know. This whole situation seems very suspect. I'm pretty sure he's not dead.
Yeah, we don't think he
I,
is. We think he's somewhere else, and what they found is BS. These police were not on it at all. I mean, they just let him do whatever he wants for weeks before she was even, uh, you know, missing, and he just
he
lived
was
his life for
playing.
whatever. I just think he's a narcissist, and I don't
Mhm.
think narcissists just go off and kill themselves either.
No, I don't think that typically that's what happens either. And I really think that I think what all he really cares about is in himself. So why would he kill
Right.
himself? You know what I
Oh,
mean?
what did you think about Jog the Bounty Hunter coming in and saying that he was helping or whatever? Do you think he was just clout chasing or was he really trying to help? Did you
I
ever
think
watch his
that
show?
I'm sure that he actually tried to help in some ways, but I think it was motivated by
Oh,
clout
of
chasing,
course. Yeah.
100%.
He's trying to get picked up for another season.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, he is. Yeah, I mean, I thought that that was probably one of the funniest things to happen
Yeah.
in this
They're like,
case.
dog's gonna get him or whatever. And then they didn't.
That would be pretty epic, honestly, if Dog the Bounty Hunter did end up bringing Brian Laundrie
That
in.
would be
That would be
epic.
pretty funny.
I just think that there's a lot of holes in this case. I think the police dropped the ball, which they do a lot of the times, you know.
The police, there was literally like an article that was posted like a day ago or something that was something like the police admit that they've made lots of mistakes in this case. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to admit that. We already know. It's pretty obvious that you guys bungled this entire situation because Brian was playing the victim to you guys for however long before you just like kind of let him go or whatever.
Right. Um, but we'll see. We'll see what happens and see if
We'll
it's a
see what
Joe
happens.
situation.
Yes.
But if he is passed away, serves him right. And anybody in a domestic violence situation, try to leave as safely as possible. That's the
Absolutely.
only thing that you can do, and protect yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, own a gun. That's all I have to say.
Mhm.
Somewhere in your house. Jeez.
Yeah, a gun. Hopefully that the other person doesn't know about or have access.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about our next story.
Yes, this is a. Don't worry, this is a more light story, guys.
We've got Dave Chappelle. Are his transgender jokes funny or should he be canceled? That's like a really hot topic right now. I hadn't initially watched some of Dave's transgender stand up and sort of like, heard from what other people had said and considered that and whatever. I have been a fan of Dave Chappelle, like, in the past. I think
Forever.
he's
Yeah.
very funny. But I watched like a 30-minute compilation of like a bunch of different jokes he's made about transgender people. And I really think that some of them were really funny. Not gonna lie. I enjoyed a couple of things he got the dynamics of the LGBTQ community spot on. He was talking about how they're separate movements, but they're all driving in the same car. And then he made this image of like the gays are the ones that are driving because they're like the white men, and you know how white men are like, "Ooh, we know where we're going." And
Yeah.
then there's the lesbians next to them, and everybody loves the lesbians except for the gay men, and that's totally a thing. And then he's talking about how the bisexuals are in the back, and the L's and the G's hate the bisexuals because the bisexual
Who's
they
the
think they're
G's?
gross. The gays.
Okay.
And then he's talking about the transgender people are sitting in the back, and everybody, like it's not their fault that everyone dislikes them, but they're just making the trip take longer and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I don't know. I didn't think any of that was offensive. I think that some of the dynamics, considering he's a straight man and this is what he's observed from the outside, he got that joke pretty spot on. And then he also was talking about in one of his stand-up specials that like sort of like a more intersectional view, and the reason that he has like a problem with transgender people crying about like their feelings essentially about society is because when has society ever given a fuck about how people feel? And like, nobody's ever asked black men how they feel, and
Yeah.
suddenly like we're asked to cater to this group. So in that regard, I think those points are pretty valid. I don't know. Like, I think that if anything, like his most offensive joke was about Caitlyn Jenner wanting to pose nude in Sports Illustrated and how he doesn't want to see that shit. And honestly, neither do I, or I don't
Nobody
think
wanted to
anybody
see it,
else.
Caitlin. Nobody.
And then he was saying, and he mostly because he knows he doesn't have the willpower to not look, and that he will absolutely look, so that if she does it, he said like go big or go home, spread your pussy lips like Hustler style and shit. Might see a little dick like peeping out of there or something. And that was the most offensive
Yeah.
joke that he made about trans women. And about if he made that joke about any other trans woman, I think I might be a little upset, but it was about Caitlyn Jenner, so fuck that
And
bitch.
you always say, Caitlyn Jenner is not a representation for the
No,
community.
no, she's the worst. I mean, she's just a rich. I mean, okay, I think he said one another joke he made about her was like it was easier for Caitlyn Jenner to change her gender than it was for Cassius Clay to change his name.
Right.
That's a good point. Like, Caitlyn Jenner is it. He says that like the transgender community crying and having that catered to smells like white privilege, and I agree. Granted, they're like the group in the trans community that gets the worst treatment are black trans women of color in
Of
general, but
color.
black
Yeah.
trans women specifically are murdered and have a very high suicide rate. And definitely not a group of people that I agree with like punching down at, but I don't think that any group of people is immune from being made fun of either.
Right.
Like, it just depends on where it's coming from. And to me, it wasn't coming from a hateful place. So I don't really have a problem with it.
And everybody, if you did not know, Benny is a trans man. So this is a trans man
Yes.
weighing in on this. So
Yes.
listen up. This
Yes.
is
I
not
mean,
just, someone on the street. Like,
if if anything, I think my biggest complaint is some of his trans jokes were just objectively unfunny. Not because
yeah.
they were like offensive, they just weren't that funny. And I want him to like, if you're gonna make a joke about the trans community, I want to like be almost mad at you because it's so funny,
Yeah.
because it's so true.
Well,
You
like
know
we
what
were
I
talking
mean?
about, there needs to be more stereotypes. And I told you in the future, there'll be more stereotypes. Just like white people, they say, we sleep with our cousins and brothers and whatever, and or eat babies,
All right.
and
Or we don't wash.
yeah,
Or
exactly.
yeah.
But and it's not. We think it's funny because it's a stereotype, whatever.
Well,
And
the thing
necessarily think
is,
it's true for everybody.
well, with stereotypes about white people, the difference is like white stereotypes don't really have any negative impact on white people's lives, but stereotypes about black people, stereotypes
Right.
about gay people, those do tend to have negative impacts on people's lives. So it's like, I think that some level of stereotyping is an attempt to categorize people in order to understand and accept them. And I think some of it is just harmful racism mixed in there. So we
Right.
just have to parse out those things.
But Dave is an equal opportunist. He comes for all races, all genders, and he even said how much he loves the trans community. You know.
He did say that, and I mean he even had a story about one encounter that he had with a trans woman, and he didn't realize she was trans, and then he was like, "Well, you didn't think about how I feel about that," and she was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna leave," and then he goes, "Well, no, we got to finish the show. We'll just finish it. It's fine." I mean, and then he talked about titty fucking her. And he was like, "Well, those tits are just as real as anybody else's."
There
So,
you go.
like I think that's
That's
coming from a place of acceptance, and also
right.
like a kind of like a funny wink nod at like, you know, more like hyper masculine men being transphobic. I don't know. I don't think it was the most offensive thing that the trans community has experienced. Sorry. It just wasn't.
I also feel, it's Dave Chappelle, and I feel like he touches on all the subjects and he cannot be canceled. Okay. So get your little pitchforks or whatever out from Netflix, and, he's just not the one. We have way worse people that you should be upset at than Dave Chappelle.
I agree. This is not the battle to be fighting. Like, there are much more pressing things for the trans community to address seriously than like some comedians' jokes. Not saying that like you can't express your opinion about it, go for it. But like, honestly, I don't think it was the worst thing I've ever seen, and I personally wasn't very offended by it. So
Yay, we have to say everybody at Dave Chappelle. Send this to Dave Chappelle. Okay.
yes, I mean, and also there's a complicated layer here also, that where Dave Chappelle's a black man, okay, and being a there is not a great relationship between communities of color and the LGBTQ community, and that is because of white people making it worse for people to exist in the world, essentially. And being a double minority is not something that people want to be, and I can't blame them entirely. So it's a little more complicated than maybe just some cis white comedian making some punch down jokes at the trans community. This is somebody who understands what it's like to be marginalized, and so for me it doesn't hit me in the same way that it would if it was just some white guy making these jokes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in for our first episode. So we're going to try
Yay.
to do this weekly. If you would like,
Yes.
subscribe, and comment what you want us to talk about for that week. We're just going to cram it into one day, and whatever you want us to talk about. We're
We'll
excited
cover
to do
whatever
this.
stories. Yes. And make sure you hit that bell so that you're notified every time a new video comes out, because you don't want to miss a single video. All
Bye,
right.
guys. See you next week.
Bye.